All right, we are in fact live and ready to go. I definitely want to say hello to anyone that has already connected. And if in fact you happen to be watching live, feel free to drop into the comments and say hello. Tell us where you're watching from if you're comfortable doing that. Secondly, if you are watching the replay, you can also feel free to let me know where it is you're watching from and certainly to say hello as well. If this is your first time with me, my name is Rhonda M. Jordan, and I, in fact, teach individuals how to build an audience so that they can ultimately not just build an audience, but really teaching them how to build an online business where they can build an audience, create an email list, and then create and sell digital products, as well as adding on additional income by using affiliate marketing. So, if you're interested in any of those topics, I encourage you to stick around. I encourage you to add this time slot to your calendar or watch the replay so that you can learn those various topics, each of which is going to be able to help you in some way build the online business that perhaps you've always wanted to build, or maybe you've already started, but you're a little bit stuck and you're trying to figure out how to move to the next level. So, what I want to share with you today that we're going to be discussing is email marketing. Specifically, what we're going to talk about today is what you should be saying or incorporating into your weekly email messages so that you have the best possible opportunity to not only connect with your audience, but allow them to really get to know you. And remember, if they know you, they decide they like you, and they feel that they can trust you, that is now a warm audience that is more likely to buy your digital products than just simply posting on social media. So just make sure that you are aware of that. Now, I always encourage people when you are watching my trainings, have a way to take notes. Doesn't matter to me how you do it. If you're a pen and paper person, that's fine. If you use your Google Docs or Word, or you simply use your tablet, however it is, just have a way to take notes so that you can go back to it at some point in the future. So, to those of you that have already connected, definitely saying hello to you. So, what I want to do is really get into the information we're going to cover about what should be included in your email messages. Now, I'm actually going to give you really 8 tips. I'll say 7 and a bonus tip, if you will. And each of these is going to help you structure an email message so that it has maximum impact on your audience. Also, so that, people will want to, open your email messages when they actually arrive in their email inbox. So just kind of keep that in mind as we're going through this. Now, it took me a while to figure all of this stuff out because, you can read other people's email messages, but one thing that I can share with you is you really have to develop your own style. So, I may have looked at other people's messages where I was on their email list, and you pull a little bit from here and you pull a little bit from there, but the reality was you really do have to develop your own style and the method that's going to allow you to best connect with your audience. So, one of the things I'm going to share with you is although the components I'm going to give you should, in fact, be incorporated, try a few things in terms of style, conversational style, and so forth to make sure that you come up with the best way of connecting the style that your audience is responding to. The other thing that I'm going to share with you, if you've ever been on any of my other trainings, I always talk about creating content that's going to allow you to really build with that audience. But more specifically, you really need to have content pillars in place. So you can go back through, I'm going to post my live video streams where I have all sorts of topics in there. But the reason why I specifically mention content pillars is you want to be able to incorporate your content pillars into the email messages that you're sending out. Content pillars are just topics that you're going to talk about on a regular basis. You actually heard me mention my content pillars earlier, where I mentioned, building or creating content, building an audience, creating an email list, and then creating and selling digital products. And finally, teaching people how they can earn income via affiliate marketing. So my audience is interested in those topics. Based upon your audience, you need to figure out what they're interested in and what your content pillars are going to be. Because as you send out email messages, you are going to incorporate that into your weekly message. Now, you're not going to talk about all of them in a message. I tend to take one topic and then I'll cover it in an email message, meaning one content pillar. And then the next week I might be talking about something else, unless it's some type of series, and I'll just continue to speak about that. So just keep that in mind as well. All right. So now let's talk about what it is you're going to be focused on when you're sending out these messages. And I want to quickly recap something I covered in last week's live stream. And that is, you need to come up with a specific date and time you're going to be sending out your email messages each week. That way, people get to, they come to expect when they can expect to hear from you. So I always say to people, in my audience, I send mine out on Tuesday mornings at 6:05 a.m. Eastern time. Why? Not that there's anything special about that. That's just what has worked for me after a lot of trial and error. So you're going to need to figure that out as well. All right, now, why is that weekly email message even important? Because you have taken the time to create some type of lead magnet. And I have training on that as well. So, again, look at the live stream videos that are going to be in the playlist. If people have found that lead magnet valuable, now they have exchanged their email address to get your lead magnet. So the last thing you want to do is just get them on an email list and never talk to them. As soon as people start subscribing, you should be sending out a weekly email, even if it is just 3 people on your email list. Now, in time that will grow, but don't abandon that list is what I'm saying. In other words, don't get people on the email list and never send anything out to them, because eventually you're going to make a decision that you want to send something out. And here's what's going to happen. It's going to be 6 months later, and people are like, who is this? And that's one of the fastest ways to end up getting a lot of unsubscribes, because people have forgotten who you are. They feel like, maybe you're not that active in your business and so forth. So make sure that once you start getting people subscribing to your email list, you are in fact connecting via a regular weekly email message that goes out. All right, so I've talked about that. Now, what I want to do is get into the next thing that I want to do is get into the 7 components. And remember, I'm going to have a bonus one as well. And that's probably the most important one. But the 7 things that we're going to be talking about in terms of what you should be including in your email messages. The first one is your email message should have some type of warm greeting. So for me, when I have with my landing pages, which is what you're going to use to get people to subscribe to your email list, what I have done is I've requested not just their email address, but I've requested their first name. The reason for that is my warm greeting always starts with, hey, subscriber first name. So it feels like I'm calling them to the front of the room. Now, I'm not saying you have to do this. If your email list has been set up and you didn't request the person's first name, don't sweat it. You can say something like, hey, friend, or, whatever you happen to, if you've named your group, so to speak, you can lead with that. Or you can just simply have a, hey, how's everything going kind of thing. So I like to use and have that warm greeting in place. And then what it does is it almost makes it feel like I'm speaking directly to them. And then the other thing is I write my email messages as if I'm having an actual conversation with people. I like people to feel like I'm speaking directly to them. For example, I want them to feel like if we were sitting in a coffee shop, having a cup of coffee, the same way that I would speak to them in that coffee shop is the way that I would speak to them or that I speak to them in my email messages. So just think in terms of that. Now, maybe that's not necessarily your style, but I definitely think greeting people warmly is just a normal way of doing business. It's like if you saw somebody on the street, you would say hello to them. So, just kind of think about that as well. The other thing you can do is you can include something, timely or relatable. So let's say it happens to be fall, the season fall. And, you've just gone for a walk and you saw the beautiful leaves changing colors. You might even say, hey, I just happened to be out for a walk. The colors are beautiful here, wherever I am. And, I hope that, in fact, the same thing is happening to you. I mean, I don't know. You can come up with whatever your greeting is going to be or whatever your timely event is going to be. Maybe the Olympics just concluded and that's your favorite thing to watch during that time of the year. So you can say, hey, I just finished watching the Winter Olympics. I'm super excited. Some kind of way to connect to them. All right. So that was tip number one, a warm, personalized greeting, make them feel seen, write conversationally, and then include something that in fact is relatable or, timely. All right. Now, tip number two, and I always do this, which is I include a story in every single one of my email messages. Why? Because people can relate to a good story. It's kind of like if you were going to give people, some information and you incorporate it into story format, they're more likely to remember it. And that's just, science. I mean, proven that that actually is going to work. And so I always incorporate a story that relates to the topic that I am going to address. And I typically like to make sure that that story relates to my own experience around that topic. So, for example, in one of the email messages that I sent out about email marketing, I talked about the fact that, when I first started and I only had like 7 people on my email list, initially I was hesitant about, do I even send this out? But then I said, you know what? These individuals have taken time to request my lead magnet. They have subscribed, meaning they have exchanged their email address. They deserve as much of my attention as if I were writing to a group of 7,000. And that was the story that I shared because I want people to understand, yes, sometimes I have doubts as well. Sometimes I'm questioning things, but this is what happened as a result of that. So using a story or a personal moment to make a point is a great way of actually connecting with your audience. All right. So if in fact you have any questions about anything or if I should be more clear on something as I'm going through it, feel free to drop that into the comments and ask your questions as we're going along through this information. All right, so now the next thing that I want to do, let me move some things off of my screen here. And if I always tell people when you see me looking down, I'm looking at my notes that are on a monitor that's right below my camera here. All right, now the other thing, let me go back to something about the short story. It doesn't have to be overly dramatic. It just has to be something that's real that happened that people can relate to, or now again, you're opening up and allowing them to get to know you. All right. Now, the third thing, tip number three is, and this one's an important thing as well, is your tip on or your take on things. I'll say it that way. So, for example, maybe, and I always tell people this, so I'm going to give you my take on it. I see a lot of what I call bro marketing. The guys that want to stand in front of the Lamborghinis and tell you not to sleep until, you die and that you need to work 23 hours a day. And I don't subscribe to any of that. And I always tell my audience that I don't believe in that because I came from that corporate background where that was the philosophy in many cases, meaning, work comes before family and so forth. And I don't subscribe to that again. So I always make sure that I tell my audience, it's always going to be family over business. That's just what I believe. I don't believe in working myself to the bone. What I believe in is working smart, not hard. I also believe in, making sure that you do work hard in times. Like if you're in a push to get something out, yeah, work hard to get it done. But then I want you to play harder. So schedule a vacation, schedule some time away from business, schedule whatever. I am not one of the bro marketers. So that is my take on things. You can think of things that you have your own personal take on that you want to share with people. And here's something I'll tell you right out of the gates, which is, and it's okay. You are going to repel some people when you give them that kind of advice, or that you share with them your stand on things. That is okay. The goal of this is for you to get to your ideal audience, your ideal customer, that person that connects with you, that individual that wants to say, hey, I believe in those same things. I don't want to work 24/7. I want to create an income that's going to be sustainable, but I don't want to do it at the expense of not spending time with my family. So the bro marketers who might show up, on my email list, they're going to bounce. They're going to immediately get off my list, and I'm good with that because the other thing you should be doing is repelling people. So you should be attracting the right people and repelling the wrong people. And that's exactly what you should focus on. So when you see people unsubscribe, don't worry about it. It just means that, you guys aren't a good fit for one another. And that is absolutely okay. All right. Now, the other thing, as you are giving your unique thoughts on things, if you will, or your unique take, or perhaps you even have a way of doing something that you have figured out and it's not really talked about very much. That's something you can share as well. So, why I want you to really get comfortable with sharing this is you are expressing your voice. And what this is ultimately doing is making you stand out from the crowd, which is what you want to do. You're not trying to blend in. You're trying to be the one that says, "Hey, here I am over here. This is what I teach. This is the way I do it." So, for example, I focus on solopreneurs who are 45 years of age and older who are interested in learning how to build a successful online business. So the 25-year-olds probably are not going to be interested in my content. Also, the majority of my audience is women, typically because the way that I present things appeals to women. Does that mean that I don't have men in my audience? Absolutely not. Does it mean that I don't have 25-year-olds in my audience? No, it doesn't, because I do have those individuals as well. But what I want you to understand is that they're hearing my voice, and there must be something about my voice. And when I say my voice, I don't mean the sound of my voice, but what I'm saying is there must be something about the way I say things, position things, teach things, and so forth that is appealing to them. The exact same thing is going to be true of you. So don't be afraid to express yourself in the way that you normally would express yourself. If you are from the deep South and you speak with a thick, heavy Southern accent, don't hide that. Be yourself. Use your voice. If there are certain sayings that you say on a regular basis, incorporate that. So I want you to understand that this is the thing that's going to make you stand out, which is being uniquely yourself. All right. Now, a couple of ways that you can do that. Let me just give you a couple of examples of how you can incorporate this in. One might be something like, here's what I realized this week. You can use a phrase like that in your email messages. Or here's a shift that I made that changed everything for me. That's another way that you could phrase it. And then Another one, here's why I teach this differently, or here's why I teach things in this way, So you're again getting ready to tell people why you're different, why you're unique, why you are do things in a certain way. All right. Okay. So that is definitely something that is important to do. Make yourself stand out. Now, tip number 4, which is a practical tip, teaching moment, or a simple micro lesson. Okay. So I like to make sure that with each email message, there is either something I'm leaving them with, meaning a new way of thinking, a way to resolve something, a new way to do things, a new tool, a new something. Because again, that's why people are going to tune into you. Now, I'm not saying that it has to be monumental, earth shattering, or anything like that. It could just be a simple way that you figured out how to do something. And again, you always want to tie this into your content pillars. I can't say that enough. And that's why I definitely encourage you to spend some time figuring out what your content pillars are, figuring out who your ideal customer is, and making sure that those content pillars are going to appeal to them. Because then when you're sending out your email messages and you're sharing information from within those content pillars, they're going to mesh. The audience is going to be interested in what it is you're sharing and how you're sharing it. So just think about ways that you can do something. So, for example, one of the things that I like to share with people is when I first started building an online business, I can recall having all of these different things that I had to piecemeal together: an email service provider, a website, I don't know, graphic design tools, and so forth. And so, as I have refined my process, there are tools that I share with people, and I like to make sure that I help to help them, reduce the learning curve, but at the same time, help them do things efficiently and without spending a ton of money. Because there are a lot of things that I can recall doing years ago that were quite expensive, that right now, because of tools that are available, people don't need to spend money on. And I'll be the first one to tell you, you don't need that, because I'm not a believer in spending money you have not yet earned. Okay. Let me get off my soapbox now. But again, practical tips, teaching moments, micro lessons, those are all great things. And that was tip number 4. All right. Tip number 5 is going to be a connection point. So, one of the things that you can do is you can start off by saying something like, have you ever, so for example, for me, I could say, have you ever wondered whether or not you were going to be able to be successful in the online space? Now, that could be one way that I start an email message. Now, I want you to think about things that you might be able to say. And questions are a great way, because now what it does is it makes people go into that mode of, yeah, I actually have. And so, what you have just done there is you've created a connection point, because in many cases, based upon people getting on your list, they probably have already found something that you all have in common, or they just like your teaching style. So, a question like that helps them connect even better with you. Another thing could just be a reflection prompt. You could say something like, throughout your email message, you might say something like, I want you to think about a time when you were frustrated with whatever, or I want you to think about a time. That could be a reflection prompt. And then you give them, something that moves them forward. Because I always feel like when you are talking to people, then sometimes and when I'm saying talking to people, I mean through your email messages, what happens is people will go into this pondering mode, or they'll start to connect with you. But I don't ever want you to leave them at a point where they're frustrated. I want you to help move them forward. So if you say, something about a reflection prompt, have you ever thought about a time? Or tell, think about a time when you were really frustrated. What did you do? Maybe that's the prompt. You could come back and say, when that has happened to me, Here's what I've done. So now you're giving them something that helped you, and perhaps that will help them as well. All right. And then another thing, and I use this a lot as well, is an invitation to reply, meaning you've gone through this information in the email message, and then at the bottom of it or somewhere in the message itself, you'll say something like, feel free to click the reply button and tell me about whatever. Because there are individuals that will do that. And oftentimes, when people do that, they're either trying to figure something out, so they will state a problem that they're encountering, and that may very well give you either ideas for additional content. It could give you an idea for a lead magnet. It could give you an idea for a masterclass. It might even give you an idea for a digital product. Because here's the thing you should really think about. If that individual is experiencing that, then 9 times out of 10, somebody else in your audience is experiencing that same thing, but they didn't want to hit the reply button and say it, or reply to you and comment, because you will have a lot of individuals that just are not going to, they're uncomfortable doing that. I don't know why, but people are. And so just understand that those individuals that do in fact reply may very well be giving you some very valuable information. Now, when they reply to you, you need to read their email and reply back to them, because now you're starting a dialogue. And in that instance, you may also be building what I like to refer to as those individuals that are going to end up being your super fans, the people that definitely want to hear from you, those that are going to watch all of your videos, and those that are going to open each of your email messages and so forth. So just make sure that you do that. Now, another thing is, by having these connection points and connecting with individuals on a regular basis with those weekly email messages going out, the other thing that's going to happen is this: as people start opening your messages, it's going to help with your overall deliverability, meaning that when you send out messages, hopefully, based upon some things that you're doing, hopefully you're not including certain words and so forth. And I'll talk about that a little bit later on. But there are certain words that can end up getting your email messages sent directly to people's spam folders. So you want to make sure that you are connecting with individuals, responding to them, and so forth in such a way that you're really building a relationship. Because sometimes I think when people either put a comment in under a video, let's say, or they reply to an email message, sometimes I think people almost feel like, is there really a person on the other end, the one who's sending me these messages, that's going to reply to me? And they're shocked almost when you do in fact reply. So I always say, if people are willing to take the time to reply to a message you've sent out, then take the time to reply back to them as well. Okay. All right. Now, this is another very important thing. This is tip number 6, which is one clear call to action. Every single email message that you send out should have a call to action. Now, what is a call to action? It's nothing more than telling people what next step you want them to take. So the call to action could be what we just talked about, which is click the reply button and tell me what you're struggling with. It could be, let's say you don't necessarily have a digital product that you've created yet. You could say, click the button below and subscribe to my YouTube channel. So you're really just telling people what you want them to do. If you have something in place that perhaps is not yet ready, you can ask them to reply and join your wait list, which, shameless plug, I'm going to throw it out here for my wait list. So I have, for the last maybe 30, not quite 30 days or so, maybe 21 days, I have been working with a group in my new community, which is going to launch on March 23rd. And my beta testers, as I call them, are individuals that are there to connect and, learn. And I'm dropping content in there. As a matter of fact, I'm in the process of recording a content course, meaning a course all about the type of content you want to be creating and sharing with your audience so you can grow the audience and ultimately get to a point where you can, in fact, start selling digital products to them. My point is, if you're interested in being amongst a community of solopreneurs, one person business owners, then click the link below this video. It'll say join my wait list. Now, what that will do is on March 23rd, that will allow me to send you an invitation to actually come into the community, which you can do at no cost. Now, there are levels that you can upgrade to if you want, additional training and so forth, but you can join the community at no cost, and you'll get some great information just being a member of the community. Now, depending on when you're watching this, if the community has already launched, then it will say, join my community. So I just wanted to put that out there. So that is a call to action, and you should always have a call to action. Now, what are some other types of call to actions that you could say? Let's say that you have a masterclass that's coming up. You can say, click the link below to register for my masterclass. That might be another one. You could say, I don't know, let's say you're hosting a live stream. You could say, click the link below to be able to watch my live stream or watch the replay. So you get the idea. It's just a next step. And the reason why you want to make sure that each thing has a call to action is you want people to get into the habit of taking the next step. And it's not a pushy way of saying things, because those that are not interested won't do whatever the call to action is. They'll just, bypass it. But those who are interested will definitely click on the call to action and take the next step. All right. Now, one other thing that you could also have is, for example, a resource. Maybe you have some type of resource that you've created. You can simply say, click the link below and, get access to this resource. One of the things I did with my audience, it's probably this time last year, my email subscribers, is I just gave them a list of like 25, I think it was behind the scene content ideas. So ideas of showing what things look like on this side of the camera that they could actually create. Didn't require them to do anything other than click, and then they were able to immediately download that copy. So there are all sorts of ways that you can incorporate a call to action into your email messages. All right. Now, the last thing, not the last thing, but tip number 7, let me go back and just reiterate what the various tips were. So tip number 1 was a warm, personalized greeting. Tip number 2 was just a short story or a personal moment where you're connecting with them. Tip number 3 was your unique thoughts on something or insights, all right? And then tip number 4 is a practical tip, a teaching moment, or a micro lesson. Tip number 5 is a connection point. That was a question, a reflection prompt, and so forth. Tip number 6 we just covered, which was the call to action, a single call to action. And then tip number 7 is going to be your signature sign off. So for me, the way I typically sign off is going to be something like all the best, wishing you great success or something along those lines. You can come up with your signature sign off. And, one thing that I like to do is make sure that I try to keep it as consistent as possible because, people come to expect that. They come to know that. Does it mean it has to always be that way and you can never change it? No, absolutely not. It's your business. You can do what you want. Sometimes I'll say, you've got this, or cheering you on. So any of those are going to be things that my audience has come to know that might come out of my mouth, if you will, in my email messages, I should say. So come up with a signature way that you're going to sign off as well, and people will relate that to you. All right. Now, tip number 8, and this is a big one. And this is one I'm going to spend some time on because I want to make sure that you really get this right. Because if you don't get this right, none of the stuff we just talked about is really going to matter. And what this is a captivating subject line. See, the subject line in most cases is what people are going to read first, because that's what they're going to see in their inbox. And that's what's going to help them decide whether or not they want to click and open the email message. If you don't have a captivating if you don't have a captivating subject line, more likely than not, your email message is not even going to get open, which means it's certainly not going to get read. So, one of the ways that you can, in fact, incorporate a captivating subject line is, you give it an open loop. See, our brains like to see connections. It's kind of like if you were watching a movie and it was one of those whodunit type movies, and you think you may have figured it out based upon what you've seen so far, but you really don't know. You're probably not going to hit the power button and shut it off. You're probably going to have to watch, because now the big reveal is happening. The same thing is this. If you, in fact, create what's called an open loop, where people have to figure out what to do next or how they can solve their problem, more likely than not, they're going to open it. So if I said, if your email, maybe this is the subject line, if your email messages don't have this, you might as well hang it up. Well, now people are like, well, what is it? And so that will make them open it. So think about incorporating open loops. Or if I said five undeniable things that must be included in your business plan, or 6 ways that you can absolutely make, or that you can absolutely make people love you, or something like that. I don't know. You'd have to come up with it with something you can come up with that is going to tie into all of this. Now, the other thing that I want to say is numbers. Numbers are a great way. So if I say 5 ways to build an audience from scratch, again, that's one of those things that people are like, if they're interested in trying to figure out how to build an audience from scratch, they're going to more likely to click and actually open that. And I could say, 7 tips to help you connect better with your audience. So, those are all going to be things that make great subject lines, if you will. And then another thing that I found that definitely helps my open rates, and I'm sure it will help yours as well, is incorporating the person's first name into the subject line. And through your email service provider, you can absolutely do this. And so when you, in fact, request the person when they're doing their landing, or you set up your landing page, if in fact you have requested their first name and their email address, now what you can do is in your email service provider, what you're able to do is to say, I want to put the person's first name into the subject line. And all you have to do is select an option. And so then when they get that email showing up in their inbox, it's going to say, Mary, I wrote this just for you. Or Sharon, I wrote this just for you, because all it's doing is grabbing the information from that first name field and it's substituting it for every single email message that's going out. And so think about it. When you scroll through your inbox, if you see something that has your first name in the subject line, you're more likely to look at it and you're probably more likely to open it. Now, I wouldn't do this on every single message because you're going to lose the I don't necessarily want to say you don't want people to get accustomed to it because now it's like, she always says that. So every now and then I might use the person's first name, maybe every fifth message, meaning once a month they might see it, or I probably don't even do it that often. I probably do it more like once every other month or something like that. But it definitely does, in fact, increase open rates. I think if you try it, you're going to see that it can increase your open rates as well. So, let me go back through for the captivating subject line. The three components are going to be an open loop in your subject line. Another thing is going to be using the recipient's first name. And then the third thing is going to be, using numbers in there. So, 7 tips, 5 ways to do whatever. If you put something like that in there, what you're going to find is those things tend to help you get more consistent open rates and probably higher open rates overall. So I always think a lot. So one of the things I always do is I come up with multiple subject lines that I want to try. And then based upon the content of the email, I decide which one I think may in fact be the best option. Now, with certain email service providers, you can in fact split test, which means you can pick your favorite two. And what it will do is half of the people will get, option one, half of the people will get option two. So, what that is going to, for a subject line. So, what that is going to do is it's going to give you data to help you, in the future, think about things that are going to be more interesting to them. Now, another tip I want to give you as well is I know for a fact that based upon my content pillars, when I send an email message out about certain things, they're going to have a higher overall open rate, period. They just are. So you're probably going to find that as well. And so, but again, I still don't want you to talk only about that one thing because if in fact you're only talking about that one thing, well, people are going to get bored and so are you because there's only so many things you can say about it before you're going to be like, oh, I've said this, 100 different ways. But I do want you to really keep in mind that having several different content pillars, you are inevitably going to end up where some of those content pillars are going to perform better in terms of helping you with your open rates. All right. So, hey, Nikki, it's good to see you here. I appreciate you being here. All right. So, again, if you have any questions as we're going through this, then I definitely want you to drop those in. Now, the next thing I'm going to be doing is giving you kind of an email structure, if you will. So when you think about writing out your email, of course, you're going to have your subject line. We just talked about that. Now, one thing I didn't tell you about, which also is helpful as well, is preview text. And preview text is typically text that's going to show up. So when someone is in their inbox and they see a message, you're going to see the subject line. And if you have incorporated preview text of up to 150 characters, then they can read that as well. And so it kind of gives them an idea of what's going to be included or incorporated into the email message. So that would be the next part. Now, do you have to put preview text in? No, you don't. But what I have found, I've been using it a lot for probably the last 6 months, and it definitely does seem to improve my open rates as well. So because of what we do, I always recommend and suggest that you test it to see whether or not it works for you as well, if it works and increases your open rates. All right, now typically what I like to do when writing my email messages is I will have a lot of very short sentences, if you will. If you end up with these long paragraphs, and when I say long, I'm actually talking like five sentences in one paragraph, which under normal circumstances would not be a big deal, but understand that most people are reading email messages from their cell phone. So that can be a lot of text coming in all at one time. So I break it up. Maybe it's one sentence, sometimes it's two sentences, and so on. But typically, I'm going to open, I'm going to have a connection point, I'm going to start my story, and then I'm going to go into my teaching points, if you will. All right. So let me just kind of give you a way that you can use this, which would be your opening, of course, your story, if you choose to use stories, and I hope you do because stories definitely make a difference. The second thing, or the next thing, is going to be your insight or your thoughts on whatever it happens to be. Give them a tip and then connect with them in some way. And then finally, have that call to action. So if you do that, then you never have to worry about the structure of your email messages. You always know what's going to be in there. For example, with my email messages, lately I've been incorporating a link to actually watch my live stream. Now, I will change that at some point in the future. So it will not always have a link to my live stream. Now, that doesn't mean I'm going to stop live streaming. It just means that I just won't include it in my email messages. So you have to come up with a flow. Another thing I want to share with you is, on average, your email messages are probably going to be somewhere between, let's say, 400 and 700 words, if you will. Because remember, people in many cases do not like to read a lot. And another thing I want to share with you is how people tend to read. They tend to read this way. And I know it sounds weird, but that means they don't read every single thing. So the things you really want them to focus in on, or to really know, I would suggest that you either bold those, put those in bold text, or italicize them, because that will stop people and they will, in fact, pay more attention to the items that you have in bold and the things that you have italicized. Okay. The other thing is, if there's a link in your email message, they're probably going to go to that as well, because it's going to show up highlighted in the message. So whatever your call to action is, or whatever you're asking them to do, if you incorporate a hyperlink, people are more likely to see that as well. All right. Okay. So keep for readability. Oh, I forgot to mention this one is short paragraphs, white space. So don't, like I said, don't put a bunch of text all together where it looks like someone's reading a book, because most people are just going to close the email message, and it means even if they opened it, if they see it structured that way, most are just going to close it, because that just looks too much like work. If it's those shorter paragraphs, 1 to 2 sentences, they're more likely to actually watch or actually read that. The last thing I want to say about that particular topic is, most people are only going to give your email message 1 to 2 minutes worth of time, if you will, because people are busy. So they got to be able to get through it quickly. Now, they might come back to it later if it's something that they're really interested in. But like I said, if it's a bunch of text together, if it's super wordy, you're sending out 1,200, 1,500 word email messages, I can tell you people are not going to read that. So think that through as well as you are creating your content. Now, one way that you can do this, if you can actually, just do a word count on it. So there are, I can't think of the website right now, but there's a website you can paste your content into, your email message, and it'll tell you how many words. Most email service providers are going to tell you how many words are in there. So, just kind of look at it. And then again, just keep testing. If, super long email messages are not working for you, then the, natural step is going to be to actually reduce them. Test some things out. Sometimes I will send out an email message that's 400 words. Sometimes, like at Christmas time, because most people who have been around me for a while, they know the last 2 weeks of the year, I'm not working on my business. I just don't. And that goes back to my corporate America days. So, those email messages, when I send those out, they're going to be super short. And it's probably going to be something like, hey, didn't want anything, no training this week, just simply wanted to connect with you and wish you happy holidays. I'll see you next week. And then next week, it's going to be, hey, still taking time off. Just wanted to say hello and hope that you are preparing to have an awesome, next year. So those are going to be super short messages. So you have to try a few things. But the other thing I want to say about that is that also lets people know you're human. You don't believe in working 24/7 because remember, I've already told my audience I don't believe in working 24/7. I've already said to them that, family comes first for me. So, for me to be working nonstop through the holidays, when that's when most people slow down and spend time with families, well, that would make me out of sync in the eyes of my audience. It would make me out of sync with myself, if you will. So just think that through as well. All right. So let's see. Hey, Denise. Let's see. This has been so interesting. I really struggle with emails. The what I want you to do what I want you to do is to think about what you would say if you were having coffee with a friend who was really interested in something you knew about and could explain to them and write it in that way. Okay. So that's definitely what I want you to do. And you said you're going to try weekly emails next week. Good. Yeah. Just pick a day that it's going to go out, schedule it, and get it out. And the first few times that you write email messages, you're going to feel uncomfortable. You're going to feel like, would anybody even be interested in this? Or did I say it the right way? Or did I say too much? Or did I not say enough? That's all normal. And the more you do it, the better at it you're going to get. That's the best advice that I can give you. But like I said, if you have an email list, I really want you to start connecting with them. I don't care if it's just 3 people on the list. Okay. All right. So those are the things that I definitely wanted to incorporate into this training because I think it is so important for you to build an email list. And once you take the time to build the list and connect with them, remember every time you send a message out, you're warming that list up. You are and what I mean by warming it up is you're allowing people to get to know you. And so when you do, in fact, get ready to launch a product, let's say, or promote an affiliate product, now people feel like they have a connection with you. They feel like they've gotten to know you. They've decided that they like you. They feel like they can trust you. So now they're ready to look at whatever that offer is. It doesn't necessarily mean they're going to buy, but they're going to be more likely to buy if they are coming through your email list than if they were just simply on a social media platform that, they've been watching your content on. Because for the most part, the social media platform that is still relatively cold. Okay. People may be watching your content, they may see your posts, but I'll tell you, if they have given you their email address and they're receiving messages from you on a regular basis, that is definitely a warmer audience. So you really cannot afford to not build an email list simply because people want to hear from you, and that's what you have to really remind yourself of. People want to hear from me. They want to learn about topics. They want to hear about specific subjects and so on. And once you think about it that way, writing becomes a whole lot easier because you're thinking, well, yeah, I've learned this. I figured it out. Let me share it with my audience. So now you become really somebody that is not only a mentor, you're developing your authority, but the other thing is you're willing to share knowledge that you have, and people appreciate that. Okay. So I think I have talked enough about why it's important that you have a structure to your email messages, what that structure is, the importance of making sure that you're connecting on a regular basis, and so forth. So I want you to put this, put this to use and really make it happen. And I promise you, the more you do it, the better at it you're going to get. All right. So, with that being said, we have been on for a while. As I said, if this is something that has been helpful to you, give the video some thumbs up. I also appreciate you sharing it with people. 9 times out of 10, you have some business besties that would love to hear this type of information. I'm here on Wednesdays, 12 p.m. noon, and I always cover topics that will definitely help you build a business, grow your business, and so forth. So definitely encourage them. And I would also encourage you to join the wait list, or if the community is open by the time you see this video, make sure you join the community as well, because that's where I get in and do more of the hands-on, showing my screen, tutorial type stuff, explaining to you exactly how to do things. All right. So with that being said, I want to say to you, thank you for being here. I appreciate your time. I want to tell you to have an awesome day and an even better week. And I will definitely look forward to seeing you on a future video. Take care and have an awesome day.